this, and I suspect, Glasgow will give them a good push to that 500 metre point. Glasgow, again, we were talking about the quality of Scottish university rowing going up in the last 2 years, and Glasgow had a fantastic Bucks Regatta, an absolutely brilliant British University Championships where they came away with, at least 3 sets of medals, I think, between the women's squad, and they're going to give Imperial at least a little bit of a nudge, I think, off the start. And almost a practical nudge, actually, off the start.
Absolutely. And Imperial will have been told by the umpires to get over. And that's where we see that over-adjustment again. They're going to have to just straighten up again before they get too close to the booms. But you could see, perhaps, that excellent shot of the difference in power at the start. And Imperial having their issues a little bit with their steering, because they're wavering about, and that's allowed Glasgow to stay with them. But the difference is in the power to get that boat from stationary up to speed, and that's why you can see that Imperial have gone out to the lead. They are more powerful athletes at the moment.
And looking at that Imperial crew there, they've managed to establish probably about a length and a half over the crew from Glasgow, and they'll be coming up to us here in the commentary point quite soon. Imperial, again, we won't have seen them come up against many of these other university crews, because a lot of them, as I say, don't row for Imperial because they go to university there. They row as a club, as a senior club member. And
well, they're just going past our commentary point there, Camilla, aren't they? And Imperial settled down now. And I think, I don't know, they look pretty angry with themselves, to be honest, because they had a pretty wayward start, and they would have wanted to have put on a little bit more of distance at this sort of 500 mark, I would say.
And they're still punching quite high, and we've seen a lot of crews take it down at this point, and it happened to Newcastle as well in that previous race, rating a little bit higher than they want to in this, this heat, effectively, quarter-final, let's call it, and they'll want to be settling, so to save their energy for a race tomorrow, potentially against Edinburgh University, coming up in the next round. Again, we don't know. And actually, I've just spotted that my old pairs partner's actually sat in the two-seat of that Imperial College boat, Joanna Tom, who's, again, rowing there as a non-student, rowed at Durham University with me, so...
So is that the person you pulled along?
No. Jo probably pulled me along, actually. She's a great bow girl to have. She's got a very strong mental attitude towards racing and rowing, and she's very committed, and hence why she's stayed to row with Imperial beyond her university career at Durham, and joined probably very similar-minded athletes there at Imperial College.
And now we've got Edinburgh University, so it'll be really interesting to see how they get on.
And again, we were talking about your non-biased...
Look at the steering there.
Gosh, yeah, Worcester having to make a bit of an adjustment so early on, less than 10 strokes in.
And again, they're over compensating, and that would have allowed, I would imagine.
And Edinburgh are going to have to watch that they don't get sucked into the booms on the far side, and I think just starting to twitch it back towards the centre of the river. And we were mentioning there, as I say, you're non-biased towards Shiplake. I feel that I probably need to be stopped with Edinburgh University, because a lot of these girls in this boat I see quite regularly, let's put it that way. I go to a lot of the Edinburgh University things, and...
you mean sports events, not social events?
Well, social events as well. I'm very good friends with quite a lot of the girls in that crew, so... I won't be too biased, but they are leading at the moment, which is good to see for me, certainly. But Worcester, doing a very good job. Edinburgh, again... Well,
Edinburgh, you can see, if you just look at the two crews, Edinburgh looking the tidier, can I say that? Because Worcester just a little bit more ragged. They're just not as together as Edinburgh. There's plenty of power coming down, by the way.
And I think Worcester have actually managed to just push back to about half a length. As you can see there from the sort of overhead footage, they're clinging on to overlap with this Edinburgh University crew, and if you just look at the surges there on both crews, I think Edinburgh just inching very slowly out to...
And Edinburgh won't be expecting this.
No, absolutely not. And I bet the Worcester coach has gone out and said, look, this Edinburgh University crew have done very well this year. You stick with them until the point where you cannot stick with them anymore. So...
There's a huge amount of power in that Worcester setup, and I don't know how long they've been rowing, but there's quite a bit of potential, I would say, in that Worcester boat.
Very, very chunky rowing, very powerful. Sort of from an end-to-end perspective, you can see when they press the boat back at the finish there, that there's a real sort of lever and chunk to it. And actually, if you look at the way that Edinburgh are rowing, very different style in that, there is a good press through the water, but it's probably not quite so staccato, in that Worcester have got a very definitive, like, blade in, whereas Edinburgh sort of very lengthy in their drive through the water, I'd say.
The rhythm is much more steady, isn't it? As you were saying, it's staccato or punchy or something like that. And if you can, the key, isn't it, is to get the boat speed moving whilst you're coming forward on the slide. And if you can get a nice smooth rhythm, as Edinburgh are now, that's making that boat speed, when they're coming forward, when the blade isn't in the water, that boat speed doesn't diminish. Whereas if you're a bit more, to use your term, Camilla, staccato or a bit more punchy, there's an on-off all the time. But I want to reiterate, there's a huge lot of potential in that Worcester boat. Absolutely, if they stick with it and they can get that greater rhythm, they'll come back.
Absolutely, and I'm sad to be leaving at such a sort of great point in the schedule of racing. I'm going to head off to go and commentate from the launch. So I'll be handing back over, and I'll be joining you all again tomorrow. So thank you so much for a wonderful afternoon. And
Camilla, thank you for your insights, and I'm delighted that you do go to so many social events and meet so many of these athletes. It's wonderful. Because, of course, I'm in bed by 8:30 these days. So it's great to have someone who's socially aware.
Is on the ground.
Exactly.
Extra info.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Helen, and I'm come back into the hot seat for the next portion of racing, and joining this race, which is race 173, which is a quarter final for the Junior 8s with Grange School King's Chester Composite on the Berkshire Station, and Buckingham and B&N School USA on the Buck Station.
So this race is sponsored by Star Capital. This event is sponsored by Star Capital, and we're always grateful to our sponsors in these events. But it's the Buckingham School from the USA who have taken a length lead. Again, as I think Camilla was saying, you're not going to come here from the States or from Australia or Canada if you haven't got a pretty good crew that's going to make it through a couple of rounds.
Well, so just to cut in there, I think the Buckingham crew actually had a bye to this round. So the Grange School King's Chester Composite actually raced, have already had a race to get to this point. So it'll be interesting to see rested legs versus the raced.
And this is a hugely competitive section is the junior eights. Headington have dominated for the last few years, but have had a real fight this year with Henley 8. And it's just marvellous to see if any of you follow Headington on a Twitter feed or anything like this, the amount of training that their squad, and it's a big squad, does is absolutely phenomenal. And again, I repeat, these are girls, or these are athletes who are involved in exams at the moment, so they're juggling both training with exams. So it was this Grange School King's Chester crew beat Headington this morning to allow them to get into this race with Buckingham. And the winners of this race will then go through to a race later, or a race tomorrow morning, which is likely, I suspect, to be Headington School A. But these races, courses with 8 athletes in there, the speed of the boats will be greater, and a lot, some people would say, not as attractive to watch as the sculling events. They're just a bit more powerful. But there we have the American crew very well in control now over that King's Chester Grange School.
Well, at this
composite.
point, let's go back to doing some results from some of the previous races. We've had the race number 165 from the junior single sculls was a win for Monkton Combe O Caesar over Monmouth Rowing Club, and it was a not timed, easily verdict. And then 166 was a win for Lady Eleanor Hollis over the London Youth Tradesman, and it was the time of 6 minutes and 37, verdict easily. 167 was a win for Shrewsbury School over King's Hospital Dublin, and that was a time of 6:58, verdict easily. Race number 168 was a win for Exeter University P. Campbell over Broxbourne Rowing Club H. Hodges in a time of 6:47, verdict 4 lengths. Race 169 in the senior Cox's Fours was a win for Oxford Brooks in a time of 5 minutes and 26, verdict 2 lengths. Race 170 was a win for Newcastle University over St Andrews University in a time of 5 minutes and 20, verdict 3.5 lengths. Race number 171 in the senior Cox's Fours was a win for Imperial College over Glasgow University in a time of 5 minutes and 20, verdict 2 lengths. And race number 172 was a win for Edinburgh University over Worcester Rowing Club in a time of 1:31, verdict 3 lengths.
So on the course now are 2 big hitters from the world of girls rowing, and that's Headington A, who were National Schools champions, against Lady Eleanor Hollis, and we know that they are also outstanding girls crew. So as I said about the Twitter feed, we watched them train on the river and in the Edo. I had the pleasure actually of watching them train at Wallingford when I went out to walk the dogs, and they were training with Cambridge lightweight crew there, and they've had some really good training. They're an outstanding coach that Headington have got. But as you can see from here, Lady Eleanor Hollis are a very, very strong crew, and they are racing well. It just shows you how strong Headington are, that they've maintained that length lead as they go past the enclosures. lovely site there as you go right back to the start where we see the local crew, Henley Rowing Club. And it's wonderful that Henley can put out an exceptionally strong 8 together with an exceptionally strong quad here. So Henley Rowing Club on the Berkshire station against William Perkins School. We would expect from what we've seen throughout the season that this Henley crew should do well, although they've probably had to make some changes coming into this event. And it'll be interesting to see what those changes have made. But they've made an outstanding start. A little bit of balance issues there, that will settle down as they move from the start. So just a couple of technical problems up here. We're all wilting under the heat, and hopefully we are now back with you as we watch this wonderful Henley crew. This is going to be fantastic battle as we hit the semi-finals. Henley coaches known for their skills on the bicycle. You don't mess with the Henley coaches on bikes. There's no question about that. You can hear them as they go past our commentating point. So it's a Henley 8 well in control. So William Perkins again, and another outstanding schools rowing crew. And although Henley have got 2 to 3 lengths now, this does not detract, let me tell you, from the ability of Sir William Perkins. It just shows you the outstanding athletes that Henley Rowing Club have got at the moment. And in the next, the great races just keep coming, really, and the great athletes just keep coming. In the next race, we've got St. Paul's School from USA, who've had a tremendous domestic season. So those races tomorrow are going to be absolutely wonderful. So those are races at 10:08 and 10:12, the semi-finals before the final at 2:15. Now I have to, and you've probably got this by now, that I'm much more of an 8s fan than I am sculling. I admire the sculling tremendously, but they really, for me, don't match the power and the teamwork of an 8. And again, I'm going to pay tribute to the Henley coaches, all volunteers, do a fantastic job to bring their athletes not just physically to a peak at this time, but also technically at a peak. But I know my colleague's got some information for the next race, because it looks as though Headington have got this under control. It might be good for you to, there's on the start line, we've got St. Paul's School, who are on the far side. So let's hear a little bit about them.
Okay, so St. Paul's USA is the first boat to competed undefeated season by winning the gold at the New England Interscholastic Rowing Championships. They led a strong performance in which St. Paul's swept the New England Championships by winning gold in the first, second and third boat races in the team trophy. In England, they remain undefeated, having won the Reading Regatta last weekend in the Intermediate 2 races, and on the Saturday, and the Intermediate 1 on Sunday. The crew led by captains Madison McGree and Elizabeth Wells. 4 of the rowers will be graduating next year and will row for rowing colleges Stroke, Addie Dowell, and Elizabeth Wells will row for Brown University, and Captain Maddie McGray will row for Yale. At St Paul's School, they have a long history of rowing dating back to 1891.
And let's just go back to the race now, because they've just started off there, and it'd be good to see St. Paul's have that start. They always come over. The American crews always look fantastic on the river. They don't do any of this nonsense with their hats on backwards or anything like that that some of the British schools crews do. So they all look really smart. So you can always tell. So there's St. Paul's School on the far side. High rate finished, gone through the transition, just bringing it down now. And they'll be looking to get up front, get in the lead, and then begin to relax so that they can save their energy for tomorrow. So they've not had a race today at all. Neither has Royal Chester. This is their first race, so they'll be wanting just to blow the cobwebs out a little bit and just go out. And they'll also look for a couple of pushes. Even if they're in control of the race, they'll want to convince themselves that on this course, that when they want to, they can change pace. So we'll see that further up the course. Interesting. I think this is the first bucket that I've seen. And by that I mean, and it's quite nice there, just on the stroke side. So numbers 4 and 5, both on the stroke side together, and that's what some people would call a bucket. It sometimes helps with the balance of the boat, depending on the different athletes' strengths. Some traditional rowers, some of my colleagues, would suggest that it's cheating to put a bucket in, and it shouldn't be allowed. And as you go past us, my goodness, I would suspect that St. Paul's crew have done a little bit of training this week. Look, they are absolutely well-honed athletes, and one that it's great to see. And they've taken the rate down already. And I tell you what, I think Henley and Headington are going to have a bit of a race on as we get into Sunday. So that will be something to look out for. Now, let's concentrate a little bit on Royal Chester, because although they are, 3 or 4 lengths down now, they've had a good season too. They've got some fine athletes. And again, Royal Chester enjoying a bit of resurgence up in the northwest. And they've got some fine regattas, local regattas that they go. And again, hats off to all those coaches at Royal Chester for bringing those young athletes on. And we'll see, actually, in Henley Royal Regatta, we'll see some more Royal Chester crews there. There's a fine programme that is going on up there. But there's the St. Paul's crew. They've done what they needed to, and they're just relaxing. Each of those athletes now will be focusing on their own individual technique, and they know they've got this boat for this race won. And one of those athletes will just need to tap down just a little bit more next time, but they'll be concentrating on their individual techniques, making sure that they're not missing any water at the catch, and that the blade stays in all the way to the finish. But that's how St. Paul's looking very, very strong. So we're going back to the next race.
Well, I definitely have an interest in this race, being a member of Vesta Rowing Club. So this is race number 177 for the quarterfinals of the Club Cox 4 between Vesta on the Berkshire Station and Molesey A on the Buckingham Station. This is certainly going to be a grudge match between the battle of the remnant clubs. In the run into it, they're just getting ready for their setup. And just to give a little bit of background on the Vesta crew, we're looking at in the stroke seat Robin, who was the youngest member of Vesta at 22, and she was a semi-finalist of the elite lightweight last year with her sister, who was stroking the 8 earlier today. Ruth at 3 comes here from a rowing family, but is here on her own merit, having won Intermediate 1 and Intermediate 2 in the Cox's pair at Nottingham City. Louisa at 2 was a novice last year, and interestingly, she pulls a 7:08 for a 2K, which is quite impressive for a novice. For Bow, we've got Jamie that's left London to join Vesta, so it's a couple of a couple up the couple of boat sheds up from London Now at Vesta, and then coxswain Lauren Owens came from Thames Rowing Club to join us, and she coached us with King's College School.
Yeah, I think they've just left the start. Tom back with you this afternoon, and we'll be leading you through, taking you through all the races right up until 20 to 6 this evening. Plenty more to come. So what we've got here, we've got Vesta Rowing Club and we've got Molesey Boat Club A. Molesey on the left-hand side of your picture and Vesta on the right. And Helen, I'd hazard a guess that it looks like Molesey in that famous black and white, the Black Death, that's what they're called on the rowing circuit. I'd hazard a guess that they are up on Vesta at the moment.
Unfortunately, so it'll be.
Unfortunately, we can't be partisan here, Ellen. We've got to be unbiased.
Coming away from the island, it'll be interesting to seeing the overhead shot. It's actually pretty close between the two crews. It'll be coming into this Cox 4. It's quite a heavy boat to get up and running. So it's obviously Molesey have had the better start, but it looks like now Vesta have just put in a push, and they're actually coming slightly through Molesey. It's difficult on the camera angle to just see who's quite up there coming towards us, so as soon as we get closer we'll be able to see directly. It looks like Vesta are up.
Yeah, developing into quite a good race. Club Coxed 4s always heartily contested the club events at Henley Women's Regatta and indeed at Henley Royal as well. And I think you're probably right, Helen, it does look like Vesta have about, I don't know, a quarter of a length, a third of a length at this stage.
Yeah, it looks like Vesta have just called in another push on the legs as they're coming past us, and they're starting to make a little bit more of a move. And it's certainly the battle with the remnant clubs is at this stage. It's looking at Vesta are just taking it to Molesey, and it's now it's a case of Molesey moving on towards the regatta enclosure. You've got a section here of the race which is key. Are you going to come back on terms? Are you going to make that emergency call? What is it the coxswain's going to do to get them on terms? Because it's still a